Welcome back to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. I am your host this week, Jim Root, joined as usual, not always, by Matthew Cox and Kai McEwen. We are here to break down the SEC, the last of our Power Conference previews. That means next week we've got awards, predictions, maybe even a day one breakdown, because we are less than 2 weeks away from kicking off the college hoop season. Kai, it makes me giddy to say it. It made you grin ear to ear as I said it. How are you feeling?
Feeling good, Jim. A little bit under the gun, finishing up these previews for the Burner exclusive website, but very excited for college hoops. Excited to be done with prep and actually watching real games that matter. I'm excited.
Matthew, are you done with your writing for the Burner exclusives website?
I have some touch-ups to do on the swackety swack, Jim. Waiting on my guy Dante Jackson to get back to me. Shouts to Grambling. Shouts to all the great squad. Shouts to all the Tiger squads in that conference. But yeah, I'm getting there. I went full turbo speed like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
Love that. Maddie hit the
Around
gas
the
pedal.
clock,
I have a little bit of NEC work to do, finishing that up. I've got a big weekend ahead, a Packers annual road trip. So these two gentlemen agreeably decided to podcast Wednesday morning instead of our typical Thursday morning. Much appreciated to them being flexible and accommodating my schedule. I'm pumped. It's going to be a big one. 5-2 Packers. We're going to be 6-2, Kai. Let's go. Come on, Pack. Yeah, these guys really care about the NFL. They don't. They don't.
I'm a big Bears fan. Excuse me. Bears fan.
Okay.
I'm leaning in this year. Lean in.
Okay. All right. Lean all the way in. Folks, we've got a wonderful show as usual. As we said, SEC breakdown, going to go team by team, all 16, talk good scenarios, bad scenarios, what they need to work on, what we can expect from them. We'll have a quick Roots Roundup to start. There is some massive coaching news we must discuss. And then we'll get some reviews all the way at the end there. Of course, we do love reviews, so leave them if you feel so inclined. We pull in the Apple reviews. We've got a couple this week that we'll get to. Mm-hmm. But also, shout out to Jay Petty for the opening tunes. We love jamming as we get started on the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at 3MW_CBB. Also Instagram. Maybe I'll post something from Jacksonville. Kai, see if I get crazy and throw something
Jordan
up on
Mincy and the boys.
Instagram.
Hey, go to the ASUN Media Day, Jim. We were invited.
I won't be there quite in time, unfortunately. And might not be on the agenda for the old high school pals. But hey, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are streaming live right now as we record this on the Three Man Weave YouTube channel. You can check us out there. Hit like, hit subscribe on there. That is helpful for us. And as Kai mentioned, join the Burner exclusives. We've got all 364 team previews rolling out on there. I believe we're up to over 20 conferences now posted. So we're getting down to the home stretch as we get up close to the season. There's also plenty of news breaking in there. Trilly had a big nugget about a player yesterday that may or may not be potentially leaving his team soon. We're not going to tell you who that is. You got to jump in, join. It's only $6 a month. You get a ton of value out of it. So hop in there. It's going to be a great community during the season, talking through games, talking through news, maybe sharing scoops from inside team sources. It's really a just wonderful place to be for college basketball fans. So hop in there. That is it. I gave you my personal corner. Don't really care about whatever these two are doing. Come on. They got nothing going on.
Podcast.
But hey, yeah.
I don't actually, Jim. This is all I've been thinking about all week is this podcast. That's how dedicated
Matthew's been dialed. We'd love to hear that. But that's it. Let's get into Roots Roundup. Let's talk news and notes, fellas. Roots Roundup. Matthew, before we do, we got to give a shout out to CBB Analytics, who came up clutch as I previewed Mercyhurst yesterday, coming up from D2, all kinds of stats. Shout out to CBB Analytics.
That's right, Jim. The holy grail of the college basketball data competitors, the 30,000-foot view down to the 1-foot view, all kinds of on-off splits, advanced statistics, slicing and dicing however you want to, the context of how players performed at certain times of the year, going back multiple years. You have conference breakdowns, individual player charts, and those can be contextualized as well. We've waxed poetic about this. You've seen them plastered all over our previews. If you want to have that at your own dial, join. It's a promo code WEAVE when you sign up, WEAVE, gets you $40 off a subscription, Jimbo and Kyle. And if you're a coach, let us know. We will get you full access to the pro tier. CBBanalytics.com.
Well done. Well said, Matthew. Yes, fellas, big news coming out this week. broken by our pal, Jeffy Goodman, Jeff Goody. He was live on air at WCC Media Day, had to quick walk away to break a giant scoop. And Kai, that is that Tony Bennett has retired effective immediately from the University of Virginia, a fixture in the sport, one of the few remaining head coaches active with a national title under his belt. This is now the first time since like 1981, I think, that no ACC active coach has been a national title winner.
Wow.
This is a shocking timing for Tony Bennett to do this. We know there were a couple rumors back in April that maybe he wasn't pleased with the NIL situation at Virginia. And really in his retirement presser, it came out that he's just not pleased with the status of the sport, the state of college basketball as it stands. He wasn't all in, not feeling it. Kai, where do you land on this news? Is it more about Bennett? Is it more about college basketball? The floor is open to discuss this massive, massive needle mover.
I think it's about Bennett, unfortunately. I love Tony Bennett so much, but boy, this is bad timing. Obviously, that's what everyone keeps saying. They're right. I thought in my head, I was like, well, surely he would have told people inside the program and like ahead of time and said, hey, I'm going to do this. I just want to line up Sanchez to take over the job. Apparently not. Apparently he was a shock to everybody within the program. So that makes it even worse. It's like, I understand you don't like the NIL situation of college basketball right now, but it's not changing. You have to adapt or die. If you don't, you will lose or you will get frustrated. And Matt, I don't feel bad for the guy making multiple millions of dollars a year coaching college basketball. And again, he's one of the nicest coaches in America and he rocks. This is a really tough move for him. Tough look.
Yeah, in no way surprised. I think we talked about this like over a year and a half ago. Is like look out for Bennett and other coaches of the like who are more old school in their ways and not being willing to adapt. Jim, I guess the timing is specific to both the new AD that they have there, but then also the desire to have his guy Ron Sanchez very close. Those two are like good pals. Sanchez came back to work for him after being the head coach at Charlotte. So I think he'll get the interim. Well, he is already been tagged the interim coach. I think Bennett just wants to see him get his shot, as we've seen other interim successes sort of
get his shot,
waltz into awesome jobs, a la Rodney Terry, a la insert example too that I can't think of off the top of my head. Jake Diebler, thank you. John Shire, Hubert Davis-ish kind of.
Oh yeah, he was handpicked by Roy.
Red Autry.
So sort of
all these legends like to hand off the reins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we'll see. Color me skeptical of all of those hires, by the way.
Ron Sanchez,
collective, but
he was a head coach already. Like getting the shot is weird to me.
Yeah, he had a shot, and he wasn't all that good at Virginia. Certainly did not elevate it from where it could have been.
Charlotte, yeah.
And Aaron Fern had a just fine season following up with his players. So I'm not very enthused about that from a Virginia perspective. They did. It came out that they lost 71-49 to VCU in a scrimmage. I think we were already kind of clinging to straws that, all right, Tony Bennett can elevate this admittedly shaky, unproven roster. Mm-hmm. And now you take him away from it. And Kai, I'm very concerned about the Hoos.
It's a big tank. Ron Sanchez, similar style. They're not going to change. In fact, they might even play slower than last year. But Tony Bennett leaving in October, the roster not great, and he was lifting the program up to begin with. I think it's a huge, huge issue for the Hoos. Yeah.
I'm slightly more optimistic than you guys are on Ron Sanchez, just for year one, just for this current year. No, year two and beyond, we'll see. But for this year, I think Virginia is still pretty competitive.
There is a review about Virginia in the review section, actually.
Good.
Can we settle on a board bet right now? Where would you like to draw the Ken Palm line in the sand for Virginia?
Jim, give me 5 minutes. I'll get back to you with my initial proposal. And we can workshop this throughout the podcast.
I was going to say 60th.
I can say 70th. That's too high. I know.
You can't say you're optimistic if you think they're only going to be in the top 75. That's ridiculous.
Ken Palm 78 right now. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Especially with like Jay Wright and his coaching tree.
Yeah.
Coach K's to a lesser extent, but with Tony Bennett, a lot of his acolytes have struggled other than Richie McKay, and Richie McKay didn't succeed until really his second go around at Liberty. It's just hard to teach something so unique. Their style, like the patience, it just, some guys are transcendent at instructing and helping kids develop. Not kids. I don't like saying kids. They're not kids. Almost all of them are not kids. Helping the players develop. And it's just hard to repeat that. And you've definitely seen it with Jay Wright's tree. And I'm concerned that we might end up seeing it with somebody getting the baton from Tony Bennett. It's just not going to be quite the same.
Yeah, I mean, he
As
was
for this,
with, oh, sorry, Jim. He was with Bennett all the way back. Sorry. Go back to 2003, Washington State. I didn't realize he's been with Bennett that long. I mean, like for 2 decades
yeah,
plus.
it's kind of
So
Tang-esque, except he had his
with Drew, yeah.
cameo at Charlotte that didn't go anywhere near as well as Jerome Tang at Kansas State. So we will see how it develops. As for state of the sport, yeah, I mean, I get it. A lot of coaches are probably going to be frustrated by this. We've seen in college football guys take coordinator jobs or D-coordinator jobs to not be head coaches because they just have to deal with less of the NIL fundraising, coordination, etc. I could see more coaches falling off, and this gives younger guys a chance that are going to be excited about trying to figure out the new landscape. And that's what you got to do, adapt or die. Not a whole lot going on in the recruiting world. We love to see that. 2 top 100 recruits. Winters Grady to Michigan. Apparently a big time sniper. Kai, Winters Grady is white. I know that's relatively stunning for you, but he is indeed. Yeah, shocking. How about that? Yeah. And then Amari Bynum to Ohio State. I was hoping he was Andrew Bynum's like son, so I could feel super old. I don't think he is, but it just that thought entered my mind as I was researching it that it was at least theoretically possible. Don't believe we have any new injury news, fellows, but we do have to discuss Memphis, the newest whatever nonsense is going on there. Tyreek Smith, it was rumored that he's going to leave the team. There's debate about whether he's been getting his NIL checks on time. His agent has taken to Twitter/Scout to lambast the program and whether he's getting enough money. And Gary Parrish is pushing back on whether he's actually gotten paid. Kai, it's just a whole nother mess to add to the pile of messes that has happened under the Penny Hardaway reign.
Yeah, I'm going to burn my Memphis plus 350 AAC ticket. There's too much going on with this league or this team. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Parrish said that he got paid like 150 of his promised 450, and then Smith's agent saying he's gotten zero. I get Bennett's frustrations. We'll say that, but let's get contracts. Get it in writing, man. The speculation ends. Football and basketball, just get it in writing. That's all you got to do.
Hey, he's back on the floor, Jim. His mom sounds like his mom gave him a little nudge, and he's back in action after, I guess, thinking about the whole NIL temptations out there.
But now he's got the stink on him from that whole complaint.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's just
why
dumb.
do that?
The whole thing's dumb. The whole situation is just like, feels like a shit show. And watching Memphis play in that UNC scrimmage, while they were talented for sure, it's the same old Memphis, right? So it comes down to like, how talented are they?
Yeah, get it in writing. And also, if you are an athlete, if you know an athlete, surround yourself with people who give a crap about you and not what the paycheck's going to say and trying to take advantage of where you are. It's just, man, there's so many people surrounded by vultures, bad people, and make sure that they've got your best interests at heart. That is probably tough to judge, but that would be my bit of advice on this particular topic. We've got some exhibition game results that we can discuss. We've watched a little bit of these. Guys, we can talk as little or as much as you'd like to. I'm just going to list the 4 that I saw from this week, and you can jump in with any thoughts. Alabama was down 3 starters, and they kind of whomped a full-strength Wake Forest, just shot the lights out, got up and down. The depth was really on display for the Crimson Tide. Louisville played a non-D1 named Young Harris, and the result doesn't really matter. What jumped out to me is that they took 56 threes and 22 twos. Just a complete tilt to one end. It would easily be the highest 3-point attempt rate in the country if they continued that over a full season. There's no way they do, but even something in that vicinity is absolutely absurd. So something to monitor there with the Cardinals going forward. Cincinnati destroyed Ohio State. The final score was only 80-62, but people in the building said it was never remotely close. It was a steamrolling. Cincinnati destroyed them. And then St. John's beat Rutgers in probably the best, most fun exhibition game that I have watched to this point. A lot of back and forth, a lot of individual talent on display. Matt, any of those games jump out at you that you'd like to comment on?
Yeah, Louisville rocks. I know you guys are tired of hearing that from the Louisville fans in Discord or Rob Dobbs. I know me and Rob are kind of attached at the hip, and this Louisville team's going to rock. But I think every time we get a breadcrumb of evidence that they're going to be awesome, I'll just bring it up to both of you so you can slowly but surely nudge and lean into joining the bandwagon sooner. Like, don't wait till mid-November. Like, get on now. Just it's got to be good.
What do we do if they lose to like some okay team? Do we get to rub it in your face?
Their schedule right now, Jim? Let's see. They open with Morehead State, and then they have Tennessee Saturday November 9th.
If
That's
they
like one
beat
of the biggest
Tennessee,
non-con.
I will
Yeah.
bow to what you're telling me here.
And then the old crosstown rivalry against Bellarmine, Liberty Hall.
Yeah.
Or no, it's probably not Liberty Hall.
It's
Good
probably a
team.
2-1 start. Seems
It's
reasonable.
Freedom
Okay.
Hall.
But no, Jim, mostly all seriousness, the St. John's Rutgers game was awesome. It's cool to see the freshmen as advertised, but I didn't come away feeling any differently than I did about either team in general in terms of how good I think they'll be.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I like both teams. And I watched and was like, yep, I think there's things to work on, but I've seen a lot of the promising things on both ends of the court that I like about both teams. St. John's was way better than Kadari Richmond was out there. I think Rutgers supporting cast is way better than people give it credit for. It's not awesome, but it's not this complete dumpster fire. And the two freshmen are studs. They can really drive the efficiency of that offense.
It made me feel way better about Rutgers, Jim. Like way better.
Okay.
I was getting nervous about them and watched them play. I was like, okay, no, we're fine. Because Dirk Hack is awesome. Dirk Hack is awesome.
Yeah, Dirk Hack was way better than I thought.
And Agbala is exactly what they need. That he doesn't need to be more than what he did in that scrimmage or that exhibition game. So I think they're going to be really good. They're going to be fine.
Yep. Wholly agree. All right. We're not going to really react to scrimmages because we don't get to watch them. I think some of the eye test stuff is more important. Getting to see a guy, what they look like, even just, like I said, a statistic with Louisville's 3 versus 2 distribution. Don't want to overreact much to actual results. Okay, fellas, that's it. Let's get to the SEC preview, the now 16-team SEC preview. Debatably the best conference in the country these days, up there with the Big 12 as potentially the deepest. I think you could envision a scenario for all 16 teams making the NCAA tournament. I don't think there's any team that is drawing dead as they enter the season. I've got LSU and Oklahoma down at 15th and 16th, but LSU's got kind of a bunch of recruiting talent coming up through the development track. Oklahoma's got Porter Moser and some decent transfers. It is not a death knell to any of these rosters. So excited to watch the conference in that regard. Just a couple other storylines, fellas. We've got 3 new coaches. One of them is not technically new. That would be John Calipari over at Arkansas. Mark Pope replacing him at Kentucky. Mark Byington taking over at Vanderbilt with a brand new roster. No more Jerry Stackhouse. Kai, who do you think would be voted the best X&O coach in the league now that Jerry Stackhouse is no longer in the SEC?
Wow. Well, they wouldn't vote for Pope because he's new, and that's who my mind kind of gravitated towards. It's probably Nate Oates at Alabama is going to be my answer, Jim.
Seems reasonable. Matt, where would you go?
Pearl?
Oates or Pearl, right? I think the two, the Iron Bowl head-to-head bout, just because I think the expectations are pretty clearly, in the clouds here, and I think both are going to be really good. So it's probably one of those two. I think the new coaches may have some rocky roads ahead that may put taint their resumes slightly relative to Oates and Pearl.
Noted. All right. Yeah, I think I would agree. I think they'd vote Oates, especially coming out the Final Four. I think some people would just kind of feel like that's the default answer. You're not offending anybody with that one. All right, let's go through the standings. This is the order that we will preview the teams. These are my own personal gym standings. Kai and Matt will certainly have disagreements, and I'm sure many people listening will have disagreements, and that's okay. Tier 1. I think these are the 3 bona fide title contenders. Others could get up here, but looking at this to start the year, I have Auburn 1, Alabama 2, which will definitely ruffle some feathers because one team went to the Final Four, one lost in the first round to Yale, but they were both 4 seeds. Auburn was slightly better analytically the entire season, and they bring back Janai Broom. So I'm nudging Auburn ahead. Tennessee also up there in Tier 1. Tier 2, Kentucky, Arkansas, Florida. Fellas, I'm going to confess, I have flipped Florida and Arkansas. So I have Florida up to 5 actually in my own.
Wow.
Since I have released this preview. Mississippi State 7, Texas A&M 8. That is my Tier 2. Then a Tier 3, which is kind of I don't know what to do with these 2 teams. That's Texas and Ole Miss. And then Tier 4, 11 through 16, again, all of whom I think could have a positive outcome where they make the NCAA tournament. Mizzou, South Carolina, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and LSU. My player of the year is Janai Broom from Auburn. That syncs up to having them first. If Auburn wins the league, it will be Mark Sears. Don't yell at me, Alabama fans, or yell at me. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I went coach of the year, Mark Pope, for turning over the entire roster and finishing top 4. I think that's going to be a challenge. Newcomer of the year, Nelly Davis of Arkansas. Freshman of the year, Asa Newell of Georgia, off that loaded Montverde squad. And I think he's got big time opportunity with the Dogs. Anything in the awards, guys? Would you emphatically say it's got to be Sears, or where do you land with those awards that I put out there?
Toss up,
Kai.
Jim. I think you can do either one and be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Matt, I'm not going to go through the all conference. I don't want to do it. I just want to talk teams.
Let's talk
you can
teams.
You can join the burner Discord, see my all conference selections, and get mad there if you would like to. Number 1, we are talking Auburn first here. All right, guys. The good with Auburn is that they are arguably the best rim team in the entire country. They were number 1 in 2-point percentage defense last year. They've got Janai Broom back. Anytime he sits down, Dylan Cardwell is as capable a finisher and rim protector at center as you could possibly want. They added a point guard that makes sense to me in Pearl's system and a shooter in JP Pegues. He's played on big stages before. And you got Tahad Pettiford, Miles Kelly, Denver Jones, and then Chad Baker-Mazara is potentially the second star. There's depth here. There's playmaking. There's shooting. There's dominance at the bucket. Kai, what am I missing with Auburn? Why should they not be the champion of the SEC? Why? I guess we'll just focus on Auburn. Don't tell me why Alabama's better.
Yeah, I do have Alabama ahead, but I do have Auburn number 2 and very, very close to my ratings. It's an awesome team. Matt Norlander did not put them in his top 25. That's borderline criminal and clickbaity, in my opinion. Sorry, Norley, I'm calling you out, man. It's a weird decision. Broom could be a National Player of the Year candidate this year. Yeah, 5 other guys back from last season. I think JP Pegues is probably the key. He needs to be serviceable or even good at the point of attack, and maybe not even good for this team to be successful, honestly. The pieces are great. Bruce Pearl's a fantastic coach. It's going to be a really good team this year, and I think they're top 5 KenPom for a very good reason. Matthew, they are rock solid.
Yeah, the thing with Auburn, Jim, 2002, and then last year, the same kind of blueprint DNA, dominate the rim. They had a very clear identity. We had to live through 2022.
You're really going back on us here. Okay.
The year of our Lord. 2022, in 2023, they kind of had the sort of the ruffle down the stretch, and then last year they were awesome again until the first round of the tournament. The identity from 2022 and last year, the same as this year. I sort of ignored the guard volatility that you could argue exists, which frankly is probably smoother this season in the wake of Katie Johnson's departure, because they dominate the rim and they win the extras. And that gives you like one of the highest floors. They can be a volatile, inconsistent team, but I just think with this same blueprint with Broom at the epicenter, it's one of the highest floors in this conference. Like, I think having them outside your top 15 overall is a little bit is crazy. So sorry, Norley, I just don't agree with you. And I actually like the guards this year. I like Denver Jones and Pegues as an adult shot maker from Furman. I'm going Bama by a nose, but I sort of pick up what you're putting down with Auburn over Bama.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, the Auburn thing, of course, yeah, they lost in the first round, but Baker-Mazara got kicked out of that game. That's probably not something you're going to worry is repeatable. But yeah, maybe the guards don't quite adapt to this level. Maybe Pegues struggles with the athleticism. That's kind of the risk. But just if you're going to be awesome at the rim on both ends of the floor, like Matt said, your floor's high. The ceiling is hinging on the guards, whether Miles Kelly can get back to some of his efficient ways, Baker-Mazara takes another mini step, etc. I'm buying Auburn. I think they're a national title contender and narrowly the best team in the SEC, just ahead of Alabama. An insanely deep team, as I have said in multiple places. If basketball was 13 on 13, Alabama would be the number 1 team in the country by head and shoulders. They are so deep. Their 13th man could start on a lot of other teams. They have a mega stud in Mark Sears. They hopefully fix their defense with Cliff Omori, although maybe that offsets a little bit with some offensive, not regression, I don't want to call it that, but a step back, just not having 5 shooters on the floor all the times. And Kai, we would also say, where's the hype level if they don't beat North Carolina in that Sweet 16 game? They also lost all 5 of their NCAA tournament games by shot quality score. Whether that matters to you or not, it just kind of tells you that they maybe weren't as dominant through that run as you might think. And the offense could take a minor step back trying to force Cliff in there. Chris Youngblood's out till conference play, a lethal shooter that would make a difference. But Aiden Holloway looked great in the exhibition. Where do you land on the Tide? Just how good are they?
Yeah, it's a fair point about their performance in the tournament. We know that people always like to gravitate towards the sexy tournament run. I think the difference is this was a top 15 team all season last year, so it's not like it's a massive leap to call them incredibly good this season. And yeah, you said it. The team is stacked. I love them more and more the more I look at this roster. Sears is, like Broom, a national player of the year candidate. I think Chris Youngblood is an insane addition. That guy rocks, coming from Amir Abdur-Rahim's system at Kennesaw in South Florida. Cliff's the perfect add. Aiden Holloway, he has potential. Did not have a great freshman season at Auburn, but maybe he gets better under Sears' wing as kind of more of a backup, change of pace guy off the bench. Final Four contender, natty contender, Matthew. Your boy, Houston Mallett, I think started the game against Wake Forest. I mean, that's depth to have him as well.
It's funny. All of these Pepperdine transfers, we talked about, who was it? Moore who went to Gonzaga?
Ajayi.
Like being touted as awesome defenders. And at Pepperdine, we didn't see any of that because I think the scheme is completely non-existent. Like, I think Melek can be a really good defender. Point being here, there are some much better defenders individually that I think people get credit for outside of Cliff, who's going to obviously be a difference maker at the rim. Right cell back is huge. I mean, really good defender, just a rock solid, like second, third banana. I think they missed him last year during that late run, even though they did improve defensively down the stretch. So I'm like in the camp that this defense is not going to be terrifying Herb Jones level. It will not have the same holes that have emerged in a few spots for the last few years of the Oates tenure. I think it's a very good defense, and juxtaposed next to a nationally elite number one ranked probably overall offense, that's a really good team. So I got Bama by a nose here over Auburn in the Iron Bowl.
Interesting. So you're still saying the best offense in the country while adding Cliff into the picture.
Yeah, because their gap was still so. I looked at the Cliff thing. Like, he's not a great free throw shooter. You can still be a great offense if you have a defensive first big, if he can finish efficiently, make free throws, right, and not take dumb shots. And Cliff, I think, will skew more that direction in the Alabama tutelage. Well, but free throws will be a big thing, though. I do think that could be a problem.
Yeah, free throws and just the overall spacing. I mean, as of, he can be a roll threat or dunker spot. That definitely works, but does right cell get every single shot wide open? Is Grant Nelson as effective off the bounce? We'll see. We'll see. I think if they finish 6th in offense, that's not some crazy step back, even if it's 10th. But if the defense comes along for the ride, Alabama's probably going to be still top 10, top 5. So maybe they are number 1. I know a lot of people have them there. It seems like kind of a decent default answer, given that they did well last year and did well in the offseason in the portal. So respect to Alabama. Number 3, pretty commonly number 3, I think, across the board in SEC rankings is Tennessee. And you start on the defensive end with the Vols. Man, Matthew, I think they have arguably the best 3-pronged defensive head of the snake, with Zakai Ziegler on the ball, Jemai Mashak on the wing, Felix Okpara at center. That is ridiculous. You have shot blocking, a wing stopper, a ball pressure guy that sets the tone. And you add in, hopefully, some offensive pop from Chaz Lanier, who lit it up in their exhibition or secret scrimmage. I can't remember which one it was. Igor Milicic has gotten a ton of rave reviews out of practice, though he struggled in their exhibition. Maybe Darling Stone Dubar comes along. I'm still not sold Jordan Gainey's going to be a big piece, but he can kind of exist next to those guys, make a couple shots. Where do you land on Tennessee, Matt? Do they have a ceiling without Dalton Connect? Is it a defined ceiling, or is this team more just like high floor, gonna hum along in 2nd or 3rd place in the league?
Yeah, I think that sophomore class that's kind of buried in the bench is sneaky important. I think they could get some depth from those dudes, some good talent pedigree there. I think it's a deep team, right? Auburn, Alabama, the top of the SEC is deep. They have money. They build deep, very long benches, and that gives them very high floors. They can withstand injuries. They can find optimal lineup pairings. Tennessee, I think, is no different. Maybe not as deep as last year, Jim, with experience. It comes down to Lanier. I saw the exhibition box score. He had like 18 points in, I think, the same amount of minutes. And then I watched Dalton Connect last night for the Lakers. And I'm not saying Lanier is going to be Connect. I do think Lanier is going to be very good and potentially fringe all conference, which is what this team needs. If he is that, Kai, I think they're a top 3 team in this league and probably a top 4 seed in the tournament.
Yeah, they're still excellent. They're my 3 team as well. Ziegler, I think, getting healthy is huge. He came off injury last year. I don't think ever was 100% necessarily. This year, I think he will be, and he's excellent. Mashak, yeah, he's a menace. I don't think Lanier is Connect. I don't think he's even close, to be honest. But
no, I'm with Kai.
But he can shoot, and he'll be solid enough with his shooting that I think he will be an important factor in Tennessee's offense. The front court ads outside of Okpara are kind of like, yeah, sure. Milicic, Jim's right, has gotten a lot of press, and Dubar are fine, whatever. It's not quite as of a dominant Tennessee team as we've seen in the past, but I still think they're very, very good. And 4 straight years of top 5 defenses in KenPom, I think that pretty much translates from year to year. And Jim mentioned there are 3 defensive stalwarts. They're going to be top 5 in the country defensively again.
Yep. That's why I'm like, well, I can't move them down. If I'm this confident that they're going to have a top 5 defense, they're going to mash bad teams because no one will be able to score against them. And yeah, they just got to figure out, they need maybe 2 guys to hit of Estrella, Phillips, Carr, Gainey, Dubar. Because I think they feel good about their starting lineup. Just got to get a little bit more juice out of the rest of the group. I think Lanier averages like 10.5 points a game. That's my guess. He makes shots, but he doesn't have any off the bounce juice to me.
I'll board bet that, Jimbo. I think he's
okay.
at least, I think he's at like 13.
Okay. Let's call it over under 12.2.
12.5. Oh, sorry, 12.2. Yes, I agree.
12.2. Chaz Lanier over under scoring average 12.2. Let's do it. Let's have fun. Here we go. We're getting board bets. Matt, did you come up with a number for Virginia? Let's revisit that.
I will accept your initial proposal of 60. Is that right?
Yep.
Are you okay with that? Okay. Yeah.
I'll say you win if it's 60. It must be
tie
over 60.5.
Tie goes to the challenger, or the acceptor. He challenged me.
I'll take the over as well on that one. They could be outside of top 100. I'm pretty bearish this year.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come along for the ride.
For me. It's enormous.
Yep. Agreed. Could get messy. We'll see. Hopefully not, because we like the Cavs, but we will see. All right, number 4 in my rankings is Kentucky. I will ask both of you real quick, 1-word answer. Where do you have them in the SEC? Kai, you first.
6.
Matt, you second.
5th, which is a big uptick from my initial preseason top 50 ranking. So
okay, all right,
yeah.
So Mark Pope is a legitimately very good, potentially great coach. I don't care if he hasn't won an NCAA tournament game. Not interested. His best tournament team didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament. That was a bummer. They are loaded with shooting. Brea, Creasa, Robinson, Carr, Colin Chandler. It can really, really shoot the ball and is an older freshman because of his Mormon mission. They have a big man that can pass in Amari Williams. He's not quite Ali Khalifa, but he can pass. They have legitimate defenders, Lamont Butler, Otiga Owe, Brandon Garrison, Andrew Carr is a good 2-way player. I think they can put enough really good lineups together to compensate for not having a star. They could struggle maybe a bit in close games when they're not really able to just kind of play 4 flat and have a guy go break down a defense and create. But I trust Pope to have a really strong process throughout the season, Matthias, and I think they're going to be an awesome regular season team. We'll see what the ceiling is in the postseason without that true star and without somebody that's going to be a pro prospect.
Kentucky is the number 1 league pass team for preseason exhibition stuff. I think they play it today or tomorrow. They might have 2 televised, but it's just like Kentucky, obviously, the entire thing is new. The offense will look night and day different. Although last year, Kentucky really, they were going full Mach 5 last year. And it's a shame that Cal finally had turned the page into a modern type of basketball that was effectively working, but then it was all just eradicated by the Oakland loss. But anyway, Pope comes in and can do that better. It's what he's been doing for years. The depth will be a big thing, Kai. Defensively, I kind of like this team. That's why I keep moving them up my rankings. I think the defense will be a lot more sound than maybe some of his lopsided lovelies at BYU was, because he has more talent. Mario Williams changes the game in that regard. Garrison as well. I like the Big Blue Nation. I don't know why I ranked them so modestly to start. I hate myself for it.
Me neither. It's weird because you love Pope. And in fact, is he an upgrade over Calipari today?
Yeah.
This year?
Yeah. So for year 1, we'll see. But I think long-term, 5 years, I think so. Yes.
I just think Pope, like a seasoned veteran of a cold weather city. He layered this roster very well. Deep ball
hair up, baby. I love it.
Deep group of ball handlers, Butler and Creasa. Deep wings, Brea, Robinson, Owe from Oklahoma. Deep front court, Carr, Garrison, Williams, even Almanor from FDU, I believe. He's just layered this team very nicely. It is so deep. The floor is very high, and yeah, I can see the defensive improvement from Pope. Typical teams, like Matt said. I still think there's offensive upside. They're gonna pass and cut and run motion the way Pope loves to do with this group, and I think it's going to be successful.
Oh, the home floor thing sucks. That's stupid. We can't be doing that.
The
We can't be
glass
messing with
floor.
the
Yeah, that's
integrity
weird.
of the glass floor they're installing on their. It's dumb. Stop
Yeah,
doing
it's
things
like,
like
oh, we
this.
can light up the floor and make designs. I'm not a fan of it either. To Matt's point, they are on TV tonight, Wednesday the 23rd, if you're listening to this.
Tune in.
Not on TV. They're on SEC Network Plus against Kentucky Wesleyan. And then next Tuesday, the 29th, against Minnesota State Mankato, also on SEC Network Plus. So if you want to get your little eye test in on how Mark Pope's experiment is coming along, that is the way to do it. But I am very high on Kentucky. I think this is a better roster than what Mark Pope had at BYU last year in terms of passing, shooting, depth, defensive pieces. It makes sense to me. And, that team, I know they finished top 20. They were probably more like the 25th best team because they're blowing out bad teams early. So that tells me this Kentucky team can be top 20. I am very, very high on them. All right, fifth in my rankings on the burner, Arkansas. Big time pedigree on this roster. DJ Wagner, Trevon Brazil is highly regarded in some professional circles. Big Z, potential pro prospect. Nelly Davis, massive scorer, a freshman class coming in with 3 top 25 recruits. Jonas Adu was an all SEC big man. How does it all come together? That's a little bit of a question. I think Boogie Fland is the most fun freshman. I'm not a huge fan of the other two as freshmen, at least this year. Richmond and Knox, I think they're going to take a bit of time. And Calipari only getting 9 guys is interesting. If 2 to 3 aren't good, you get 2 injuries, etc. Like the depth could get short really, really quick for them. We'll see how this works. Kai, where do you look at this Arkansas team as maybe a hinge factor or something that's really going to decide how good they are?
Yeah, I got him fourth in the conference. It's a typical Cal team. I think if he's at Kentucky this year, I think they are ranked higher personally. You get 2 of your stud freshmen back from last year, Wagner and Visich, or I'm calling him Big Z. I can't pronounce his last name. Both could be very good. They could be post-hype sleepers. I think each of them have a lot in the tank to grow. I think Tiero coming from Kentucky is huge. That guy kind of came out of nowhere to start last season. He's very, very, very steady. Nelly is a star. Brazil due for a bounce back, a guy that we thought could be like in like the best case fringe All-American last preseason before he got hurt, or 2 preseasons ago, excuse me. And then the freshman talent, yeah, 3 top 25 guys. It's very Kentucky-esque, Cal-esque. Question is, does he still have his fastball, Matthew? I lean towards them being very, very good regardless.
I love the front line. I'm a big believer in all those guys, even some of the young dudes, as Kai mentioned, with some volatility or some risk attached to them. It's about the point guard play, Jim. Like DJ Wagner, I felt I was high on last season, but I'm hearing a lot of like, is he the point guard of this team? I was like, I thought that was a given. So I don't know, hearing some of the doubts out there or the tinkering of how they're going to have the ball handling creation thing go with maybe Nelly Davis bringing it up sometimes. If Wagner is good or Boogie Fland is good, one of those 2 guys, then this team's going to take off. If not, and there's some oh crap, we don't trust them. Nelly has to handle the ball, create, and be a scorer. Then I think this team will hit some turbulence. And so that's where I think the fork in the road is with this team point guard.
Yeah, I'm excited or interested, I guess, to see how they play. Is it going to be Calipari carrying over the style from last year, bomb away from 3 and run and get up and down? I don't think he was very pleased with how they defended last year. And the assistant swap of John Welch, who modernized the offense, to Kenny Payne, who ran Louisville into the ground,
I love that.
is concerning a little bit. Yeah, I know he won with Kenny Payne before, so it's not like that guy's just going to completely doom him, but I don't know. Maybe they go back to a little bit more, just let's bombard the glass. They can maybe a little bit better defensively. They're bigger. I could see that being the case, and the offense being a little bit more of a struggle. It's DJ Wagner, definitely not a proven shooter at this level. And, Nelly Davis had one really good year last year. Who knows whether the freshmen shoot it. Flan takes a lot of tough shots. It's just kind of a question. I'm going to be very interested in their style early on based on the big change last year and then the swap in the staff. Next up is Florida, number 6 in my SEC rankings. This team just looks like it fits Todd Golden's vision for a basketball team. You get up and down, got a deep stable of bigs that can all play 17 to 25 minutes a game, rotate and bludgeon the glass, score early in possessions. They've got shooting on the perimeter. Walter Clayton, potential All-American. Elijah Martin off that FAU team, second straight team in the SEC with an FAU star joining the fold. Will Richard can shoot the lights out. They feel one guard short to me, Matthew. I wish they had one more ball handler. Perhaps that is Klavzar, the European edition that they apparently paid a decent amount of money for. Maybe he's the guy that kind of lifts them up and adds a little more playmaking. But either way, I have warmed up to them. I think they're just going to be exactly what Todd Golden wants a team to be. And that's a pretty high floor. And if they make shots like they did last year, it's a decent ceiling too. Where are you on the Gators, Matthias?
Yeah, I think this team is a more balanced team this year. They were 12th in offense last year, 94th in defense. I think this is a much more balanced team. The defensive makeup to me, I know they lose Micah H., who was obviously a huge loss for them down the stretch. Basically, the reason they lost that Colorado game is because he got hurt the game before. They had no rim protection. The Buffs scored 102 on them, I think, in regulation, something insane. But I think this team has a more sturdy defensive backbone. Offensively, the concerns you mentioned are noted. But I think they're more than offset by the fact. I saw that Golden was saying they're going to probably pressure a little bit more this season, Kai, weaponize some of that depth and length and speed, which is very, very smart because that's sort of where I think they got burned last year is they were just too vanilla defensively. I just don't think they really made anyone sweat on offense. I think they're gonna try and bring some back to you this year.
So I got them down at 9, but it's pretty close to the group ahead of them. I think they could be awesome, and I love Todd Golden, of course. I just don't love the transfer ads. I don't love Chinyelu or Alexis. I think those were just kind of meh to me on the scale. They didn't move the needle much. They could be solid in support roles if like Condon and Hoff improve a lot and are really, really good. I think Elijah Martin's awesome. So exclude him from that transfer group I just talked about. Like I think he's incredible. I'm probably way too high on him, in fact. And I had
it's a bounce back year from Martin.
I had him way too high in the top 100 most likely, but I just think he's a stud. And Clayton's an SEC Player of the Year candidate. So a lot to like. I actually kind of think their depth's kind of thin. I agree with Jim. Like the backcourt depth is really worrisome to me.
I guess it's young. It's young. That's fair.
You need Klaus there. I mean, Aberdeen played really well the last like 4 games of the year when they just finally said we're out on the Riley Kugel experiment, and they handed the ball to Aberdeen as the not backup point guard, but I mean he handled it a ton. So perhaps he's also another guy that fits in well. And I am very high on a Condon breakout. I think actually being the guy in the post, kind of ascending into that Tyree Samuel higher usage role, dominating the offensive glass. I think he's going to be a monster. And even with Handlockton out for the season, I think the front court is a major, major strength. I'm a little higher on Chinyelu than Kai. I read
him, I like Chinyelu too.
Started playing basketball late, so I think the development curve could be faster because he's so young in his basketball life. And I think he had really good stats in their exhibition game. And that was kind of like, oh yeah, in this potential factory for big men, I could see that working out really well. So we will see how that goes.
We should plug, Olivier Roux, if you've not seen the footage of him, 7'9", who actually can move. Like, I don't know if he's going to play 5 minutes a game, 10 minutes a game, 0 minutes a game.
0 minutes a game.
0. Okay. I bet he plays 5 minutes a game. We'll have to ask Sapphire. You don't think they're going to play him a little bit?
No,
I think if they're playing a team that matters, he will play 0 minutes a game.
I think they'll put him on the ball in a full court situation when they need somebody to put their
Great
hands up.
situational piece, though. Love the situational piece.
Yeah.
He is enormous. I can't. It's sorry.
It'll be a curiosity of just kind of like
7'9".
Look at this.
7'9".
So we'll see how much. I don't think they'll use him very much at all. But hey, maybe when they're mashing a small non-conference team, he gets in there and gets a couple dunks where he doesn't have to jump. That's fun. All right, number 7, Mississippi State. We've got Chris Jans in charge, who has clearly already taken this program not to a new level, but at least 2 straight tournaments. That's not overly easy to do in Starkville. They've got a professional scoring guard in Josh Hubbard coming back to lead the charge. Cam Matthews might be the best 2-way player in the league. A great passer, trigger man on offense, and 1 through 5. The true definition of can guard 1 through 5 defensively. He's a monster. They added a bunch of bites at the apple in rotation, but you could say the depth is a little questionable. What if the chemistry experiment with Kanye Clary and Claudel Harris and Riley Kugel explodes? That is possible, considering Clary and Kugel completely fell out of favor with their former coaches, and the interior defense maybe not quite as elite this time around. Kai, what about you on Mississippi State? I'm 7th. You have them
7th. We're aligned.
Okay. Right. There we go.
Yeah, back-to-back tourneys, first time since 0809. So it has been quite a while for Mississippi State.
Not even Ben Howland
Yeah.
could get that done.
Yeah, I love Jans. We all love Jans. It's a tough team. Yeah, Hubbard's a star, and I do agree Matthews is like the ultimate glue guy, and that's probably selling him short, calling him just a glue guy. He's great. But yeah, the Melendez, Kugel, Clary choices were strange, and maybe the only coach in the country that can maybe make it work is Jans. He used to work with JUCO guys all the time and cobble together weird rosters at New Mexico State. It's not his first rodeo.
Yeah,
but I
that's
still think they're kind of like eyebrow raising ads to me.
Yeah, go
very
ahead.
good, a good team. I'm summarizing it as rock solid.
No, I wanted to jump on that point because like Kugel, Clary, and Melendez are like three of the most Jekyll and Hyde type guys of any transfer that was brought in this league this offseason. So ton of upside, but man, there are going to be some stinkers. I think there's going to be a couple of games where Mississippi State's playing Southern at home and they're up 2 with a minute to play. It's like, come on, James, what are we doing here, right? And that's sort of they had a couple of bad losses the last couple of seasons. I think that actually could get even worse this year, but the upside's there. I like that he's at least trying to lean into more skill. I just worry, Jim, like, is he veering too far off the kind of the beaten path that got him to where he is sort of this more of a foundational, toughness, gritty, interior focused type of coach?
I think they can still play that way a little bit. Like Sean Jones, Cameron Matthews, Kugel is a legitimately really good defender. And
yeah,
he's
big
he
is
when he's dialed in. So you can play those three with Hubbard or Clary or Harris and have 3 good defenders, and the offense doesn't fall apart. The center thing, like they stole Famina late in the process. I think they've got a couple young, longer dudes that it
felt panicky. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have like the true rim protector. Now, Tolu Smith was not a rim protector. That was not what he did. He was a little more ground bound, carve out space kind of guy. So it's not like, and same with Jimmy Bell, but they just don't have the same beef. I feel like they're thin at center. It's a little physically thinner. So we'll see. I think they're going to be really solid though. And I do think there's actually maybe a wider range of outcomes just because of the volatile pieces, the Jekyll and Hyde guys that Matt was discussing. To number 8, a team that I think is not a wide range of outcomes. I think it's pretty narrow, quite honestly. Texas A&M. They have a clear identity under Buzz Williams. You know what they want to do. They want to win possessions, the battle there. They got a stud in Wade Taylor, high upside in Manny Obaseki that I'm sure Matthias will wax poetic about. Elite role players. Anderson Garcia is basically Dennis Rodman, Solomon Washington coming along. But how good is that identity? They did not get any better last year, despite basically having the exact same core. They added guys who can't shoot that don't fix their problems. Matt, where's the upside here as the guy that was really high on them in our top 50 voting?
I think Manny Obaseki is where it starts. I think you have to look at last season as a tale of like 3 teams. I'm not sure how many chapters I would draw, but clearly when Buzz finally let Obaseki run free starting in March, he started the last 5 or 8 games of the year, right? Won 5 in a row, almost beat Houston in overtime. He was basically awesome down the stretch. And I'm not saying he'll be that consistent this season, but I think as a former 5-star recruit guy who is somehow still in college and somehow I think, getting better, there's real upside there. The one concern I have is still with shooting, and it was just an absolute disgrace last season. And Wade Taylor can shoot, but he is streaky. As much as we love Wade Taylor, I saw in the exhibition game he was streaky. I think pretty horrendous. It's sort of a microcosm of kind of his Jekyll and Hyde-ish nature as well. I'm with Jim. I think the ceiling. I was thinking I would be really high on the ceiling. I've kind of come back down on it. I think there's still some inherent flaws in this roster that were exposed last year that I don't think are fully fixed this season. But we know what Buzz does. He wins the extras, rebounds, takes care of the ball with weight at the point of attack. So they're going to be really good. I mean, this is a top end team for sure.
I am 5th. I think they're kind of a fixture in like the top 7 at least.
I agree. I think they're a safe top 7.
I don't think they can fall very far. They're too old. There's too much continuity. I don't think Matt's super crazy anymore to have them like borderline top 10 after I kind of dug into him. And getting Payne, Phelps, Wilcher, that kind of gives them legit depth on top of the guys they brought back. They don't need those guys to be anything more than just really good role players, and I think they can do that. So yeah, and I'm still a big Wade Taylor fan. They're going to play defense. They're going to be extremely physical, and there's grown men.
They are. It's the best eye test team in college basketball. It's just like holy cow, that team's terrifying.
I just think, they could just kind of outwork everybody on a nightly basis.
I think Zerk Phelps is a horrible ad.
I
A guy
agree.
that
Wilcher, I
cannot shoot
like.
at
I
all,
hated
high
Phelps. I hated the
usage.
Phelps ad.
Yeah, I just don't get the fit there
And
at
he's
all.
off the bench.
But
He's not starting for this team.
yeah, it just doesn't make sense. I saw somebody say he could be the Dalton Connect this year on the Field of 68 Hot
No.
Take show, and I
What?
wanted to claw my eyes out. That's just not even looking at
Not a
what
good
kind of
take.
player he is. Texas A&M in 2022 finished 33rd in KenPom after a late run in the SEC tournament and the NIT. People got high on their potential. The next year,
That's right.
33rd in KenPom with a lot of people back. Had a late run. They went 15-3 in the SEC, but we're not good in the NCAA tournament. Last year, they bring everybody back. 35th in KenPom. Kind of played well late. Matt saying the tale of three seasons. They're the same team. It's the same team. I cannot talk myself into them being higher than like 30th nationally, maybe 25th. I just don't think they have a ceiling. So I will be bearish on that.
Much higher
that projection.
preseason rank in KenPom this year. They were 45, then 24 last year, 16 this year.
They will find their way to 30th, I say, says
So
I.
Buzz outperformed his expectation 2 years ago, actually.
We could do a 24.5 KenPom final ranking board bet.
I'll take the under. Yeah, I think they're going to be better than that.
Under 20, Jim. What's your number?
I'm giving you 24.5.
Oh, yes, lock.
Cool. I'll take Texas A&M over 24.5 final ranking. Look at this. We're just churning out board bets on this episode.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah. Next up, Texas. This is an interesting roster that has a nice blend of shooting, playmaking, a monster at the rim in Caden Shedrick, some role guys in Jason Kent, Julian Larry, Kendall Weaver. It kind of makes some sense, and it really did until they added Arthur Kaluma, a high usage, slow processor, inefficient player for his entire offensive career. Don't really get that. The depth at big man is really concerning, and Caden Shedrick has massive injury questions throughout his career. He's been benched a few times. Kai, like I said, I kind of throw my hands up. I think this is a massive range of outcomes, but the ceiling's a little bit limited by Rodney Terry to me.
Yeah, Terry Trust. Are we too harsh on Terry? I mean,
maybe.
The thing is, it's hard to. So everyone kind of says like, you're too mean on Terry. He's had elite talent. Like these 2 Texas teams he's had have been among the most talented teams in the country. And in that lens, I just don't think he's elevated the group from that perspective. Now, this roster is also really talented. I don't love the Pope, Mark, Kaluma fit, though. That combo, it doesn't. Of course, you love Pope as a player, but Mark and Kaluma fit, that does not excite me at all. And Jim's right. Shedrick is injury prone. He's good. He's injury prone. Can't stay on the floor. I love Larry and Kent. I just don't know how much Terry's going to play them over the guys I mentioned before, because what promises are you making to the guys like Pope, Mark, and Kaluma only to play 2 quote-unquote mid-major guys over them? I don't know. I don't know how he's going to balance the rotations. Is Trey Johnson awesome? Let's not forget about the top 5 freshmen on this team. I just think it's a lot of different pieces that Terry has to figure out on top of being a good coach in the SEC, which is razor-thin margins. Matt Kempom's got this team top 20, number 5 in the SEC, but I'm lower on them in the standings like Jim.
Yeah, a little bit lower. I mean, I think Terry was okay last year. They were 500 in the Big 12. I thought some of their wins were just in really good spots against hurt teams. Like they beat Texas Tech at a really good time of the year on the road. That was like their biggest win, I think, in terms of resume building. It's a deep team and it's a talented team. And again, I love some of the winning bench pieces, Larry, Kent, and Weaver. I think there's just too many options here for this to really go sour. As much or as little faith as you have in Terry. This is kind of a roster is too good to fail. I'm not saying there's not crazy upside here, but I think it's too good, too deep, Jim, to fail. Like to really go south. I think it's just gonna be a really solid mid SEC.
I bet 10-10, 9-11 in the SEC.
I go 10-10.
I don't. Maybe it can't fail, but like Trayvon Mark was on a team that failed hard last year. Jordan Pope's been on horrible teams in the Pac-12.
Can't really defend.
Larry and Kent were unlocked in a great coach's system. Maybe they kind of fade back here. Like I could see individual pieces, and Shedrick gets hurt. What are they doing in the interior? I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical. That's why I have him 9th. I also admit that there's a lot of talent that could fit together really well. Trey Johnson's an elite freshman shot maker. So who knows? I'm kind of throwing my hands up at Texas. Also doing the same with Ole Miss, although I feel a little more certain about what they're going to be. This is Chris Beard's second year in Oxford. They have a ton of offensive options. You look at their stats from last year and you're like, oh my God, so many shooters, so many scorers that had 10 plus points per game. Lots and lots of offensive weapons. But I have no idea how they get stops. I think everybody that brought back is a legitimately bad defender, like true negative with Murray, Brakefield, Morrell. Those are bad defenders. They didn't bring in any rim protection to cover for what they lost there. The only two guys I would say are definitely good defenders are Dre Davis and probably Mikal Brown-Jones.
Yep.
It's just, it feels like a team that everyone's going to fall in love with in the preseason on paper, throwing the top 25. And they're just like, oh, we forgot about defense. We forgot that matters.
Which is weird because it's Chris Beard. And that was always a given under Chris Beard. And he brought Adams back, right? On his bench, or Mark Adams.
Yeah. Mark Adams is back there.
So the coaching is there for a good defensive team, but I agree the pieces are questionable. Dre Davis is a great defender. I agree with that. And I love the Browns-Jones addition. It's a hell of a get. I'm not big on Malik Dia. I don't know how he adjusts to SEC play, number one. Also, he was basically the highest used guy in America last year. It's weird going from I am everything on offense to a team, even to like a detriment on Belmont, in my opinion, to now I'm just like the seventh best player. And I don't know how that's going to fit in. It's weird. The backcourt's very good. It's deep. I don't think there's a surefire star on the team, though, and it's not enough firepower to slot them ahead of others, in my opinion.
It's like a better version of the USC situation where you have guys,
much
like
better.
10 of them
They got returners,
who have,
at least.
Yeah, right. At least some continuity, but like you have a ton of guys who have scored a lot of points. And I just think I don't love how that sits on paper. Defensively, I think they'll be better this season. Not a lot better, just naturally better. They had some kind of unfortunate progression shot selection with shooting last year, but still, positionally, Jim, you talked about like just really, really disjointed stuff from what you would think would be a pretty sound defensively coached Chris Beard team. And yeah, I don't know if it was really addressed defensively in terms of personnel in the portal. So still like the offense. I think they're really good. But yeah, I'm sort of questioning the high ceiling I initially tagged on this team as well, because I don't think the defense can be that great.
Yeah, I would say I personally think the personnel is worse defensively than it was last year, which like without centers that can block shot, like Moussa Cisse has anchored amazing defenses and they were horrible last year. I mean, I think you can make the case that Jamarian Sharp gambles too much for blocks and isn't all that sturdy and isn't mobile. But I still think, unless they're going to try to switch everything, they still are going to have some problems in the interior. And I think a lot of the guys that they're going to try to switch with can't keep people in front at all. So that is a major, major concern with Ole Miss. Next up, fellas, the Mizzou Tigers. Kai, I've got a Mizzou flag behind me. Let's break down our alma mater, the team that went 0-19 in the SEC last year. Really depressing season, but a lot of the flaws of that team appear to be fixed here. Depth, biggest one. They wore down in every single game last year. They really went out and got pieces in the portal. Positional size. They're not minuscule at guard. They've got actual size at center that isn't Connor Vanover, who just couldn't really compete at this level.
So disappointing.
They've got Mark Mitchell, an actual like 6'9" small ball center that's not Noah Carter at 6'6". I think it just makes sense here. They're shooting. You can put together lineups that are potentially good on both ends of the floor. My worries are that Dennis Gates' defenses are like the same every year. They don't rebound. Even at Cleveland State, they foul a ton. What's his defensive ceiling as a coach? We'll find out this year with this roster.
Yeah, the athleticism is better. The size is better. I'm hesitant to get hurt again, but this is a much, much better roster than last season. And I know we were probably too bullish last year on Mizzou because we're fans and we bought the upside of every transfer. But
hey, if Grill and Tanjay were healthy, I think it's a different season.
And Kurt Lewis was a flop. But yeah, so Mitchell has plenty of room to grow. Perkins is a bulldog. Also, they appear to be the team leaders already. They're going to all the events, Perkins and Mitchell. It really seems like they're putting them forward. I like that. Gray, at least he's big. At least he's competent. That's a shift.
I like Josh Gray.
That's a shift at center for Mizzou. We have a legit center. I don't care if he's like not that great. He's legit center. He has size. Cruz is a wild card. I think he could be at least better than Noah Carter, and I think that's an upgrade. He can shoot better. He can probably do more stuff, just versatility wise. And then Grill and Bates, two of the oldest players in college basketball on the wing. I think that's really important. The depth's young, but they played a lot last year, Matt. I like my Tigers. They have a shot at the tournament.
I agree. No, it's a good team. Defensively, I think it'll be Gates' best team, Jim. I know historically the track record is not going to be good. I just think on paper, Perkins, Mitchell, Gray, those three alone, and Grill, I think, is regarded as a pretty good defender, right? Like very good in some people's eyes.
He's just physical. He like competed on the glass, something nobody else did last year.
It's just a more athletic. There's some more depth. I like this team. I do. I'm pretty in on a Gates bounce back. Happy for you guys. You deserve it. Last year was kind of was kind of
how dare you?
Yeah, that was bad. You didn't win a game last year in the SEC. I feel like that sort of went like glossed over by some people, but
we were close.
No
one's glossing that over. I think it's pretty brought up constantly that they did not win an SEC game.
Yeah, I put Mizzou like, oh yeah, I got Mizzou eighth. I feel good about this team, and it's like, oh shit, they didn't win anything last year. It's like I don't care. I'm moving.
I think you can kind of throw out last year with the injuries, the complete roster reset. It's just a team that I think you could. Oh, they had a good season. Be like, oh yeah, why didn't we see it with the pieces they added? Now it could go south because they don't defend again with Gates's scheme. And at that point, then you start to question whether he'll ever have a good defense and that's just I don't want to walk down that path right now. We're optimistic.
It's a shame because Sean East was awesome, like emphatically amazing last season, and it just was put to no use at all.
Yeah.
So shame.
Next up, South Carolina, the team that basically had Mizzou's 2023 season. They won a lot of close games. Ended up getting a seed where they got to wear white in the first round of the NCAA tournament, but they were not a top 50 KenPom team. They lose some key pieces. But Lamont Paris is a really good coach, Matt. He's got Colin Murray Boyles, one of the shining breakout, I'm going to be a star candidates in the entire country. He's getting lottery buzz for the NBA draft. They kind of had to scramble to find a point guard, stealing Jamari Thomas from VCU. Cam Scott's got potential. They can bring Miles Studi back as a mature piece on the wing. I don't like saying mature. I take that back. Ugh. Anyways,
mature.
What do you think about South Carolina coming off that big year, but maybe not being as good as the record made them appear last year?
Yeah, I agree. I do think they're getting a little bit too much of the bump from last year, too much bump in the hype from last year's run. I have two concerns. One is point guard. They had a late pickup in Jamari Thomas. We talked about that Norfolk State transfer. Really good there, solid player. But their guards were really sound last season. Like I just think that the way that Michi Johnson and Talon Cooper really set, especially Cooper was really kind of the floor general. Great. Rock solid. Thomas can be that. I just think it's a big projection. Second thing, Kai, their uniqueness in the league, just the extreme contrasting styles that Paris sort of brings, I think caught a lot of SEC teams off guard. I think you heard multiple SEC coaches talk about how that was an adjustment for them, how they weaponized that. Year two in the league, I don't think they're catching anybody by surprise in terms of how they play, the physicality they bring on both ends, and some of those physical pieces they lost anyway. So we'll see how this goes. I think they're going to be really solid again. I think Paris proved you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. This is no longer your father's South Carolina when you're doing SEC rankings. I think the floor is pretty solidly high, but not anywhere near as high as last year.
I don't think 1 year changed a thing. They played, their record wasn't close to what they actually were, right? Jim said it. They weren't a top 50 team. I think they were a little lucky. They're not as good as last year. They're not going to pull Mizzou. They're not going to go winless this year. CMB is a stud. We all agree on that. I think Thomas is a sneaky get. Matt's right, from Norfolk. If he translates, the ceiling is higher. The rest of the group outside those two guys, it's very meh to okay for me from a roster perspective.
Yeah, to Matt's point on the contrasting styles, the second lowest team in tempo in the SEC last year was Vanderbilt, 285th, and that's gone now.
And it wasn't a real team.
They're going to play much faster with Byington. South Carolina was 351st. Like they just drew you into a half-court grind fest, even more than like Mississippi State ever did. And I think that was really tough for a lot of teams that wanted to get out and run. Your Alabamas, Kentucky's, Auburn's, they just weren't quite ready for that kind of a fight. We'll see if they're able to handle it this year. But I think South Carolina generally outside of Murray Boyles is not quite as good as they were last year, especially, man, Cooper. Whew, what a season he had, despite a kind of a strange career for him.
I'll say this, Jim, in the 7-foot trade, South Carolina, Mizzou, South Carolina gets Jordan Butler, Mizzou gets Josh Gray. Mizzou wins that wins that trade. You guys won that trade.
Easily,
So,
easily.
good for you.
It's not even close.
Good for both of you.
Yeah. Although it was bad last year.
Why'd you
Okay,
get Butler,
Georgia.
Lamont Paris? Sorry, that's it.
Yeah. Well, at least he got Nick Pringle. Pringle will be the starter. He's
Pringle's
an actual
Pringle's
proven
good.
SEC
Yeah.
caliber player. Georgia at number 13. I kind of like what they have here, Kai, but it's young, man. It's sophomores and freshmen, potentially their best players, unless the Mount St. Mary's transfers really translate. I like Justin Abson. I think that was a really good ad, and I kind of wanted him to be the Mizzou center that they swiped instead of Josh Gray. Great shot blocker, anchored one of the best mid-major defenses in the country at App State. Godfrey, I liked off the bench at Clemson. It's just kind of a weird mesh of players. This feels really high variance when I look at the roster. Is it that high variance based on Mike White? Does he have the ceiling to really raise this team? A guy that, shout out to Will Warren and his great newsletter, Mike White, the only coach in the last 7 years who has finished below his preseason KenPom rating every single year. That's a tough stat. You really don't want that to be cited about you. But Kai, where do you land on this team? Demery, Kane, Newell, the freshman. There's talent for sure.
I don't think this team's bad, but I got him 15th. I think it's really hard to be young this year in the SEC. We've named all these teams so far. They're all old rosters, seniors, grad students, upperclassmen, and Georgia is kind of the opposite. And yeah, you could get major leaps. The sophomore backcourt, Demery, Kane, that's intriguing to me. Asa Newell, that's intriguing to me. Will he be a stud right away? We don't know. Could be really good. But we've seen guys like Gigi Jackson play for the number 221 team in KenPom before. It doesn't matter if you have one guy that's a all-star right away out of high school sometimes. I don't love the support pieces. And yeah, the White stat is very, very funny to me, the KenPom ranking thing. I think they're a bottom 5 team for sure in the SEC, but not bad.
Yeah, I kind of like the upside. Jim's right about the youth, and I made the same point about Illinois. Like when you call a team young now, it's not that it's all freshmen. It's like if there's a lot of sophomores and then freshmen sprinkled in and no upperclassmen, like super. And that's what this team kind of has. But upside's real. Like I love the talent. I think this is the first year old Mike White breaks that KenPom preseason bar. I love the Abson hire defensively, just adding some physicality and toughness with Damari and Kane, a young but probably very volatile backcourt, as you guys mentioned as well. The other thing too, this team has no home court advantage. Every team in the SEC is a tough place to go in and play. Georgia's like okay. They just don't have the same juice that sucks in a league when you have to when you have to protect home court against awesome teams to get that edge. They just don't really have a good home court.
Yeah, I mean, even some other football schools like Tennessee, Bruce Pearl energized them. Barnes has kept that going. Auburn, Bruce Pearl has made that an insane place to play. Alabama, insane place to play. One of my best friends is a huge Georgia fan, married a Georgia grad. They couldn't name the Georgia basketball coach. They couldn't name a player on the team. It just doesn't have quite the juice yet, Matt. I think that's actually a really good point, that they're not going to have that edge going through the gauntlet that is the SEC schedule. Number 14, Vanderbilt. Welcome to Mark Byington, a guy who has won basically everywhere he has been, which is 2 places, but 2 hard to win places in the past. But it took him time to build at both Georgia Southern and James Madison. He wasn't an immediate home run elevating the program. He likes to kind of construct things. That's not really what he did with this roster. In the opposite of Georgia, Matt, it is much more experienced. There's a lot of grad transfers on this roster, a lot of older players, somewhat proven, I guess, at their own level. I don't know if they're proven in the SEC. It's a lot of per minute all-stars. Like if you're looking at stats, like these guys look great, but I don't know that that's all additive. You can't be like, oh, if all of these guys get a ton of defensive rebounds per minute, well, they're going to end up taking from each other. There's some cannibalization there. So that's a little bit of concern. And boy, the interior defense looks rough to me, especially that Kajani Wright is hurt to start the year. Where do you land on Vandy, Matt, with Mark Byington taking over?
Yeah, they feel a little soft. And I think it's just sort of, it reminds me, and there's a few coaches coming up from mid-major to high major where they didn't really have a ton of size at that level. They got away with it because of the competition. Talk about Brad Underwood at SFA to Oklahoma State, Illinois. You can talk about, I'll think of 3 more examples when I stop talking here. But anyway, this will be a change for Byington. I think he's going to learn how much he'll have to adapt his personnel, his roster when he goes to the SEC with a very,
Pat Kelsey at Louisville?
Pat Kelsey. Nope. Different thing. That was my next comparison, Jim. This is the Louisville of the SEC with obviously a lower ceiling and much lower pedigree standards. But I love this roster outside of the interior softiness, and it is kind of soft. Jalen Carey, shouts to Vernon Carey, shouts to the only JMU guy who came with Byington. Hogard sounds rejuvenated, revitalized, fresh slate. I know Jim loves Mr. Hogard. I know Jim for sure loves Mr. Jason Edwards, and I think he could be like legit all SEC player. We'll see how many games they win, maybe probably not. But I think there's a lot of backcourt and wing talent here, Kai.
Yeah, Byington has the two top Ken Pom ranks at two different schools. Not many coaches have that. Georgia Southern, James Madison being the two schools that Jim mentioned. He's a great coach, and I think this team is a wide range, like last place to like 8th place in the league. If everything clicks, all these transfers, they're deep and they're old, and they definitely have some upside. I love Jason Edwards. Matt's right. He could be a star in the SEC. I do not like AJ Hogard. What does Hogard expect his role to be on this team? How does he look outside of the Izzo system? I bet his assist rate will go down 100%. I guarantee it. It might even be like significant. It's a completely different system than what Izzo had at Michigan State. Is Hogard supposed to be a scorer? Bad idea, in my opinion. So I'm very curious to see how they coexist. He's played with Tyson Walker before. Edwards isn't super different than Tyson Walker from a scoring perspective, but I don't know. It could go a lot of ways. I love Byington. I slotted him at 12th for now, Jim, but I think it's a wide range.
Yeah, totally agree with wide range. I mean, I just kind of look at this and I see like Chris Mannon is coming from one of the most unique systems in college basketball at Cornell. That is a tough adaptation. McLaughlin, bad team. Johnny Wright, bad team. Grant Huffman, bad team. Tyler Nickel, bad team. MJ Collins, bad team. Like, okay, you were getting some stats on bad teams, but these guys weren't impacting winning. I don't know. I think they're, like Kai said, big range. It could go really well and the pieces sink, or it's guys that maybe aren't quite ready for this level. They're old. They don't have a lot of upside to access, and Byington is going through growing pains at a new conference. So I'm kind of just going to wait and see with Vanderbilt. Not going to take a strong stance on them early. And that's why I have them 14th. I mean, I don't have them 16th like some places do, but there are question marks for sure. At 15, Oklahoma. Porter Moser in charge here. It's another one where if I squint, I can kind of talk myself into it. I love Duke Miles at point guard. Kobe Elvis, solid player for an NCAA tournament team last year. Jaden Jones, also NCAA tournament, although that's kind of twisting the words. They were 10-10 at Long Beach. Sam Godwin's one of the best offensive rebounders by rate in the history of the sport. It's ludicrous how great he is in there. Jalen Moore played well late. Bryson Goodine can shoot, but Kai, Jeremiah Fears is a strange late ad that can kind of upset the apple cart and change the pecking order. I don't know if I love that. A reclass point guard just never goes well. It hasn't. I don't expect it to go well again here. It seems like Moser's kind of just trying to accumulate talent and hope for the best, but it's a low end SEC team for me.
Probably the biggest difference between KenPom and like media and public perception. They're 9th in the SEC, number 40, ahead of Kentucky in KenPom preseason. Moser does more with less talent. I think he elevates his roster pretty much every single year. I don't love this roster, but it is really old. It's all 5th-year guys, pretty much, seniors, and then Fears, who's, of course, a reclass, like you said, Jim. I see a world where they could definitely outperform and finish 500 in the SEC. I see a world where they just don't have enough talent when you stack it up to the rest of the league and they finish near the bottom. I just think Moser's kind of too good for that, Matt. I slotted him at 15th as well because I didn't know where to put him. Sorry, at 14th. But they're not bad. Once again, there's no bad teams in this league.
No bad teams. I have them, I think, a smidge above LSU in the basement, right below Vandy, right? It kind of tied with Vandy. I love Moser too much. I like Duke Miles too much. And even Kobe Ellis, Jimmy talked about how he's kind of in store for potential breakout here. It's Porter Moser. Yeah, the talent's blah. I don't like that I saw Bryce Gooding playing major minutes in that exhibition. I think he's a good scorer, but again, as a SEC player, if you're relying on Gooding and and fears, an underage freshman to score, it's going to be problematic. Again, it's Moser, high floor, low ceiling, rinse, wash, repeat. There's nothing really else profound to say for me on that one.
Yeah, I think some of Moser's better teams have had super skilled bigs. You've got Krutwig going back to Loyola, and Groves. Tanner Groves was awesome. They don't really have that on this roster. There's no one they can play through in the front court. Godwin's not like that. Wuggy is not that at all. So maybe that's a concern that he's going to have to shift things to a lot more of a perimeter-based team. But the Loyola Final Four team was Clayton Custer and a lot of guards. So I trust him to adapt. It's just kind of a talent level, a fit thing. His fears have some chemistry issues. If he's not being the alpha he seems to think he is, that is a concern. Last but not least, LSU, the Bayou Bengals. Coach O, go Tigers. This is it's a reasonably talented roster, man. Like if you put this team in a lot of other conferences, they're certainly not dead last. They've recruited well the past couple of years. They bring in 3 more top 70 guys. Tyrell Ward ascending, Josh Reed ascending as they go into bigger roles. Mike Williams, second year. I had a hard time with them. They just kind of landed default last to me. The backcourt out of the portal that they're going to trust. Cam Carter's has been inefficient basically his entire career. Jordan Sears is smallish, and they didn't find success with Carlos Stewart last year. So it was kind of a shrug to finish last, and we'll see how it actually bears out.
Yeah, I wrote down this team isn't even that bad, but someone has to finish last. It's
Good.
worth
Yes.
It's worth remembering. Yeah, they finished 99 in the SEC, tied 7th. They were a borderline top 100 team last year, 11th in KenPom in the SEC. They weren't that good. McMahon just can't get momentum. I think last year's team, what stood out to me was inconsistency. Sometimes they would look awesome and have stretches where like, this team's great. And sometimes they were just piss poor, awful. What are we doing? I think that kind of continues this year. I really like Reed. Like, that guy is talented. And he could be an excellent player if he wasn't so inconsistent. The backcourt's interesting. The overall talent, though, kind of like OU, kind of like Georgia to an extent in terms of their youth, doesn't stack up to the rest of the SEC. This is a really tough conference. And again, someone has to finish last.
I like this team. I was a little bit perturbed by a lot of the K-State fans. Bothered, annoyed by. But the Cam Carter thing, like, was he good or not? I think that's a big conundrum because I think he's sort of the X factor for this team. I mean, I love Sears, but I think they're going to need another solid guard. That was the problem last year. They had no guard play, no reliable guard play. With the will he, won't he, Jalen Cook injury thing that lasted all season, I think the rest of the talent around him, Ward, Fountain, Reed, Williams, Collins, to illustrate, like, all good players could never see it. If they have a good point guard or a good guard to like get them in offense, get guys good shots, not take dumb shots, protect the ball, some continuity, I think this team could really like maybe crack the middle of the SEC, like of the standings. I still think they're a pretty good default last place team, but the Sears Carter backcourt thing is critical because that's what they missed last season. Like, Cook was good, but he wasn't always in there and he wasn't always efficient and consistent because he was just battling that injury all year.
Yeah, I kind of trust Sears. I don't trust Carter. I think Carter has played with a solid coach and just couldn't figure it out. Their best lineups probably end up being with like Mikey Williams or maybe big with Tyrell Ward at the 2. You play some of the younger guys. Curtis Givens was the 6th man on that insane Montverde team and actually played a lot late in the year. Maybe he's a little sneaky upside guy because of that, context of the team he was playing on. We've seen those Montverde guys be really, really good. Maybe exceeding recruiting rankings because of who they had on the team. It's just a weird team to me. They could, like Matt said, crack the middle, or they could end up being really bad, and McMahon starts to get a little bit of a cooked up seat underneath him. But he took over a program that had, issues with the end of the Will Wade era. So I'm guessing he at least gets another year. Anything else to add on the SEC fellas before we go to how many NCAA tournament teams? No? Okay. I am going to answer first. I will say 10 out of the 16 make it. It's going to be a brawl of a league. I think there'll be a lot of teams mashed up in the middle. I like the top 8. And then I'm going to say one of my Texas or Ole Miss makes it. And then one of my tier 4 has a good year and gets into the tournament. Kai, you first.
I say 10 as well, and one of the teams will be from the 11 through 16 projection. I just don't know which one, and I don't know who's fallen out of the top 10.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm going to go 10, and I think this is at this time next year, or I guess in next April, we're going to start to have oh shit, the power mega conferences actually isn't good for every team in those leagues, because when you're at the middle-ish bottom toward the bottom, it's going to be hard to like really overcome, I think, having a below 500 record league to make the tournament. Like, I think there are going to be tournament caliber teams, Kai, in this league, for potentially 3 to 4 that are not in the picture, or in many cases, not even competitively in the picture because their conference record's big of an eyesore. Like Oklahoma, you could see them going 7-13, being top 50, 45-ish in KenPom, some good wins in the non-conference, and they just simply got caught in a bloodbath of the SEC, where they were in maybe maybe the old Big 12, I think the old Big 12 is a bad example, but just I think I'm curious to see how that plays out this year as these leagues get bigger and bigger and the bottom gets better and better.
I think it won't matter as much conference record with the new setup the way it is, and it's not supposed to matter, but you're right. It's an eyesore and people kind of know about it, but I think it'll matter less. The problem is if you have 13 losses, you have 13 losses at least.
Yeah,
that's where kind of
that's true.
Sneaks into the record, right?
Yep. Yeah. If you go 8-12 in the league and you lost 3 games outside of it, you're like, well, you're eliminated. You have to get 10-10. So perhaps that is why all these teams are lightening up a little bit in the non-conference strength of schedule, which is a bummer, but I like that that's still on the team sheet for the committee to look at and say, oh, did they actually challenge themselves? That can be a differentiator if you actually got some wins in the non-conference. All right, that wraps up the SEC preview. We'll do some reviews quick before we send you on your way, and I will kick it to my reviews are Mr. McEwen.
Okay, short one first, longer one last. Boney Tony 21, great show. Really love the show, consistently informative and thoughtful, which is a rarity. Also a Virginia fan, so I'm here to memorialize. Kai, come on. Coach Bennett, dark days ahead. Hopefully 3-man weave can see me through them. We agree. Matt's a little more bullish, but I think it's dark days ahead for Virginia, man. Oof.
I think if you're Virginia, you have to eat a bad year so that you hire outside.
Yep. I agree.
Can't be totally Sanchez long term. Yep.
Yeah,
totally agree.
You're Ryan Odoms or somebody else. I think that's the best case scenario for you.
And I'm slightly more bullish on Sanchez, but no, long term, you need to do something. Get outside the box. Get out for sure.
Mikey Pot Pie, here we go. KenPom over and underachievers. Shout out, love the pod. So a group of him.
Well, Mikey, I love your name, Mikey Pot Pie. So
best name.
He says a group made up of my brothers and a few friends are in a pool. We pick the standings and player of the year for each power conference, champions for every other conference in the country. We have a section where we draft teams we think will over and underachieve their KenPom rankings. You get points, the amounts of spots they finish over or under. It's kind of a cool little league. I like that.
Remember the poll game I used to do at the very start of the weave? But yeah, it's like a KenPom portfolio.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
The overachieving teams were chosen: Mississippi Valley State 364, SLU, SLU 105, Cal 135, Ole Miss 47, Providence 60. The underachieving teams were Villanova 20, Dayton 27, Oklahoma 40, Tennessee 13, and UCF 66. Which teams stand out to you as the best picks for each category? Are there any teams we missed? 3MW for life is the hashtag. Love it.
I love picking Mississippi Valley State because you have no downside.
Yeah,
literally
no upside, baby.
There's no chance.
Teams that low is the way to go. I think, like in the
that's pretty fun.
Higher 200s. Great choice on the underachieving, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those teams are pegged by everybody to be overrated.
Yeah, I like SLU and Cal. I don't love I don't love Tennessee as the underachiever. I think they're just high floor because of defense, but Villanova, terrific pick. Dayton feels a little overvalued at 27. So
UCF,
Matt, where do you land on these?
Yeah.
Yes, they could.
How about any of the new D1 teams?
There's 2 of them.
There's 2. I have not previewed West Georgia
yet.
So
West Georgia would be my preference. They look like a decent team. Nice little team.
I know, yeah.
Mercyhurst could be okay. I think they'll be better than where they're currently slotted, but I don't know how much better.
West Georgia had an awesome point guard, Swady Jackson, who is now playing
Mexico
Jackson,
State,
Mexico State. He's going to rock. I wish they had him. I'd be more bullish on that being a fun D1 team to watch this year.
Yeah, SLU's a great pick. 105. They'll be a top 100 team, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Ole Miss. I'm concerned
I
just
don't
because of the defense.
I don't like the Ole Miss pick. I don't love the Providence pick either. I think they finished right in that zone, baby, right in that Cooley zone, right
I
around
think they
60.
could get to 48th.
Yeah,
I don't know if they got like top 30 upside.
I think
We'll see.
Louisville's pretty low. Matt would love that as a pick, but
Louisville would have been a
Yeah,
good
Louisville
selection.
60th. Take Louisville.
this is a fun exercise. We appreciate this comment, Mikey Popeye. We're probably going to talk about this a lot. Hey, maybe in the Discord. How about that?
Yeah, there we
Back
go.
to Jim.
So I think we talked about potentially setting something up where you take like 5 teams over, 5 teams under, and
I
just
like that.
have a portfolio that lasts throughout the year. We'll maybe get that set up in the Discord as one of the games and contests that Trilly is trying to get people more involved with for interaction. So that is it, fellas, unless there's anything else to add. Thank you for tuning in to preview season. As we said, next week will be All Americans, Elite Eight, Final Four, champions, runner-up. We pick them too. We always added the Elite Eight so we can get a little spicier. Throw in some 4 teams that we think are a little more off the radar, give them some love. So we'll do that. Maybe give a little of a look ahead to opening night, Baylor Gonzaga. Can't wait for that after Monday Night Football. That's going to be really, really cool. We're getting close. We're getting close, folks. Thank you for tuning